All right, everybody, welcome back to the Beans No Ball podcast. And for episode 18 of the 2022 season, obviously the season is almost wrapped up, just got 2 weeks left to go. Lots of playoff implications, lots of great football to get to this week. So let's just get right into it.
Yeah, so obviously, we had a really big weekend for football. It's Christmas Eve and the Christmas Day games, and there's every single game. I'm not gonna probably for the first week. They're all pretty good games. I would say majority of them, maybe like one or two are like but for the most part of it, this week was probably the best week for football. And obviously, like you said, closing it out. So finished strong, closing out. Lots of lots of teams with playoff implications on the line. So. With enough said, let's just get right into it. So starting off with the Thursday nighter at the Jaguars and the Jets, and this game was pretty much expected. Zach Wilson came in back at quarterback and played badly once again. Jaguars came on top now, making this their third win in a row, I believe. Trevor Lawrence threw only 31 passes but completed 20 for 229 yards. So very good, no turnovers whatsoever. Could not record a touchdown pass, but didn't record a turnover, so that's something. Excuse me, Etienne got 22 carries for 83 yards, so not too bad on the run game. And then Evan Ingram, what a surprise! He had another 100-yard game, 7 catches, 113 yards. So it seems to be he's making a bounce in his career. I wouldn't say bounce back yet, but he's kind of reliving himself once again on the Jaguars. And from the looks for the AFC South, the Jaguars could most likely take the division, looking how the Titans are, which we will go over in a couple games later. And as for the Jets, well, obviously that was a very horrible collapse that they did this season so far with Zach Wilson. And with recent reports, it does seem like Zach Wilson's career in New York will be finished at the end of the season. So really look good for Jets fans at the beginning of the season. Really huge downfall now. After Jaguars, they went out, they're in.
Yeah, I mean, we were alluding to it for a while now that, sure, at first we did think this was just going to be kind of a push for next season for the Jaguars to see and kind of get themselves into the conversation for next year. But with the Titans collapse, it's just looking more and more like the Jaguars are going to be able to sneak in this year. And the rebuild could be ending early. Sure, it's just sneaking in as the 4th seed in a weak division, but you never know. Whichever team's hot in January can go pretty far. So it's just to wait and see what Trevor Lawrence can do in the playoffs if he gets there. And like you said, as for the Jets, it's just unfortunate to see them falling back down to earth after just such a great start. We knew from the start that Zach Wilson was going to be holding them back, and it was going to be as far as the defense and the run game could take them. The injury to Breece Hall was a big factor that did hurt this team, and now, not being able to have Mike White, who was the kind of picking this team back up little by little, it kind of did hurt the Jets. So it's just to see. I don't really expect Zach Wilson to really get a shot back in the NFL too soon. He might get just a backup role somewhere, but it's unfortunate that Zach Wilson's career has been derailed this much. Now, of course, moving on, let's get into the Saturday slate of games, which start off with a pretty good game, pretty big surprise, at least to start. The Bills and the Bears. Pretty nice duel between Josh Allen and Justin Fields. It was close from the start, and the Bears even came out to a pretty nice lead, 10-6 at halftime. But second half, Bills finally woke up and went on a 29-3 run, and just like that, taking a 35-13 win. Obviously, a big story, Josh Allen. Not even the biggest numbers, but still 2 touchdowns on 172 yards. Devin Singletary, who he has been slow for the past couple weeks, he cracked over 100 yards at 106 and got into the end zone. So basically, the Bills offense, as we've gotten used to, they're really clicking, obviously in the right time now in December, and it's I believe they clinched the AFC East with this win. So they're obviously now for this week they'll be pushing to clinch a first round bye, see what happens with them and the Chiefs. But overall, the Bills are just really, as we've been saying, they're hitting their stride at all the right times, and it's just wait and see if they can finally finish in January.
Yeah, just looking at this game, this is pretty obvious one-sided game. Just another great game by Josh Allen. It's been doing really well for them. Obviously, with Devin Singletary doing well on the ground with 106 yards and a touchdown. This Bills team is just it's looking very nice with Josh Allen as their franchise quarterback. Still, people have their doubts after his rookie year, but obviously now Josh Allen has proved himself to be an elite quarterback, possibly top 5 quarterback in the league right now. And obviously, it could be debatable, could be arguable, but a lot of people would agree. But it just everything's going good with the Bills right now. It would be nice for them to probably win the Super Bowl this year. But with things are looking with the other teams in the league, it's gonna be a challenge. But as for the Bears, they just closed in at their eighth game losing streak. Excuse me. They just closed out on the 8th game losing streak, which ties their franchise record. So it's just realistically for the Bears, it's not Justin Fields. The Bears know Justin Fields is that guy. I've had my doubts about Justin Fields, but now as I'm looking into it, he really has no pieces around him. His offensive line can't block. He has no weapons at all. His running backs are pretty decent, Montgomery and them. They're pretty good, but he has no receiver. Like his receivers, he has really no one. I mean, after getting Chase Claypool, they're 0-6, I believe, after the trade deadline or something around there. And then their defense is like really inconsistent. They're not bad, but they're not good. They're like, I would say, subpar. So he really doesn't have a team around him. If Justin Fields were to get a team to be built around him, decent receivers, probably a better defense, Bears will probably could be contenders. So hopefully in the offseason, something in the Bears organization does happen, and for Justin Fields to finally get the spark that he needs. But obviously looking back forward, for the Bills, it's obviously going great for them. So they could be the team to be in the AFC other than the Chiefs. Now, moving on to our next game, which was a game that was not surprising but not expected. The Saints at the Browns game. This was a pretty close game. This was scores back and forth, but mainly in the second quarter. Browns had a good lead, 10-3 against the Saints, and then the Saints rallied back in the third quarter, scoring 2 touchdowns, and pretty much shutting out the Browns in the whole second half. So, like you did mention it last week, that Saints defense is pretty good for what they are. I obviously chose the Browns to win this one, but obviously it wasn't an Andy Dalton masterclass. So, regardless of that, Amari Cooper, looking at him around with that Browns team, it's really just him and not really anyone else on that receiving core. It's just really him, but he really couldn't do much. Nick Chubb, as for the running backs, he did pretty good, just 8 yards shy of 100, but could have helped the Browns. And then Deshaun Watson, obviously, since his return, he hasn't really been doing well. Only threw for 135 yards and interceptions. It is reasonable that when he first started back playing, he didn't play in over 700 days. So that's reasonable. But with that being said, hopefully he gets it. Hopefully he gets everything fixed up. Hopefully the Browns, once again, will not be the laughing stock. Well, they're not the laughing stock anymore. It's obviously the Texans, but with their years of mediocrity and failure, hopefully they get it going with Deshaun Watson. And as for the Saints, they're still in. Oh no, I think the Saints. I don't know actually. Saints been eliminated or no?
They're in.
Okay, there you go. Cause I wasn't too sure about this. So the Saints are still in. I know this game does help them in the NFC South race. Although with the Buccaneers and how they're looking really good, which we'll get into that in a bit, they still got some playoff hopes for them.
Yeah, it's just a good win overall for the Saints. I know, like I did mention, that their defense has somewhat stepped up. Sure, it's not against the best opponents, but it's in the time that they've needed it. It's just to make a playoff push, which you don't usually expect that for a 6-9 team, but in this AFC South, anything's possible. I believe the Falcons are the only team that have been eliminated from contention for that. But yeah, it was a decent game, for Dalton standards, and just the defense keeping him in it enough. Only holding the Browns to 10 points, and just for the Browns, it's the main thing here is, the reason I did pick against the Browns this week is because Deshaun Watson just still hasn't been able to catch his groove. Like you mentioned, being out for about 700 days, you can see why it's taken him so long. But, you would think at least a couple games in and against inferior opponents, he could start, easing in little by little. But you see in this game, only 135 yards, no touchdowns, and an interception. He's he's still struggling. So it's probably going to come down to what can happen next season. But at least this year they're just going to ride it out and probably probably just struggle. And yeah, moving on, got another early game on Saturday, which was pretty expected. Easy agreement for the both of us, and the Seahawks and Chiefs. A little closer than I probably would expect. I probably would expect the Chiefs to run away a little further, but 24-10 victory, pretty good for their standards. Obviously, Mahomes just being himself, 224 yards and 2 touchdowns, and of course Travis Kelce getting 113 yards, which this keeps the Chiefs in contention for that top record in the AFC. And as for the Seahawks, this does give a pretty big hit into their playoff hopes, which, I mean, with both them and the Lions losing, they're keeping pace, and the Commanders losing too. Obviously, they're kind of all grouped up into the to see who can catch up for that 7th seed. Of course, the Packers, them keeping winning. It's all coming down to possibly into Week 17, see who can get in mathematically. But yeah, it's just a lot of the Seahawks recently just having this poor run of form. It's just going to really make it hard for them to really get into the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, this is another team right here. The Seahawks is just another mid towards end of the season collapse. You know, they had a pretty decent record. They were like 7-5, 7-3. I don't really remember, but they were above 500 for quite a while, and they just collapsed. You know, they've been on a losing. But I mean, they were going to against a really good Chiefs team, so everyone expected the Chiefs to win, and it was expected. But it really hurts, you know, especially since we've been praising Geno Smith for a while, how great he was looking, bringing his career back, and obviously seeing who won the Denver Seahawks trade, and clearly Seahawks still won, but they still have a lot to go over. You know, they have star players. You know, Kenneth Walker, Tariq Woolen, you know, on defense. Kenneth Walker, the running back, and then just many other teams. You know, it's a very talented team, but obviously they're very young. They still have a lot of things to fix and go over. And then as for the Chiefs, well, it's the Chiefs. We know over them already. Making the playoffs once again. They already clinched the AFC. What was it? The AFC West. Sorry, yes, the AFC West. So they're chilling with that. So it's really just the AFC is really just down to the Bills and the Chiefs. And as for the Seahawks, playoff implications are still in play. It just depends on if they can win out or not. And moving on to our next game, which is a pretty surprising game that we did not expect to be as close. The Giants at the Vikings. This is another game where the Vikings won by just a one score. And they are 11-0 when the game is a one-score game. And as being the other win was a pretty blowout win. And then obviously for the losses, well, can't really swung with the Cowboys and the Eagles. And as for the Giants, they came up with a huge victory against Washington 2 weeks, last week technically, but with a very controversial pass interference call that was not obviously called. So obviously letting great momentum, them hoping their playoff implications still alive. You know, with Daniel Jones playing pretty decent this week, and still with Saquon Barkley having a fairly above average game, but obviously the Giants could not contain Justin Jefferson, for him having another historic run with 12 catches, 133 yards and 1 touchdown, which does pass Randy Moss for most receiving yards in the first 3 seasons as a Vikings receiver. And Justin Jefferson is on pace, with it being one extra game in the regular season, to be the leading receiver for the most yards in one season, and beating Calvin Johnson. He needs to have, I think he needs to get over 1,967 yards, 1,967 yards. And we saw that Cooper Kupp almost did it last year. He was just 20 yards shy. So I think with the extra game and the way with Justin Jefferson has been playing, if we could possibly get a 200-yard game next week, which we go over during our predictions, he could possibly be it. And then obviously everyone's using the excuse that it's an extra game. Calvin didn't have an extra game. I mean, what can you do? That's the NFL's decision for adding an extra game, not necessarily the players. But obviously looking at this game, the Vikings, they've really been winning the whole majority of their wins, not including I think they're 11, like I said, 11-0, or I think 12-0. 11 of their 12 wins were all one-score games. So, I mean, if they want to go far in the playoffs, they have to score multiple points. Winning by 3 points won't necessarily help you win in the playoffs in most cases, but the Vikings will need to step up in the playoffs if they want to make a run. And as for the Giants, well, obviously, it's win or in for them, technically, depending how the playoff standings are looking. But obviously, Daniel Jones has been having a pretty surprising season this week. So, I mean, for the Giants not picking up his 5th year, hopefully he gets something going for the Giants next season. And obviously, the Vikings are great for them. Just they got to step up a bit in the playoffs.
Yeah, just you mentioning that about Daniel Jones and not the Giants not picking up his option. I mean, this year he has kind of proved himself as he could be that guy for them. Obviously, if he does end up leading them to the playoffs, that could really be a factor, and to see if he ends up getting a contract, and I see probably a sizable contract at that, and especially if he gets a playoff win, who knows what could happen. But yeah, so far the Giants are still firm into that 6th seed. So at that point, I believe they'd be playing the Niners. So that'd be just to see what can happen. Obviously, we'll see if the Giants can slip up a little more. I don't believe that they can catch up to the Cowboys, but still, I mean, they're looking in a good spot, especially with how the Seahawks and Lions not really looking at their best. I'm pretty sure the Giants will stay in the playoffs. And as for the Vikings, you said it there kind of perfectly. If most of your games are going to be one-score games, it's really going to be hard to keep that going. If you're playing close games, especially against teams that won't be in the playoffs, once you get into January football, playoff football, if you're playing volatile football like that, it's going to just be a lot harder. And teams like the Niners and the Eagles, and of course your Cowboys, they're not gonna forgive mistakes that like what Kirk Cousins has been known to kind of let go. I mean, we saw the Cowboys game, we saw the Eagles game, and even that loss against the Lions. There's just little things that the Vikings do that could hurt them come playoff time. Even though, to me, just regardless of how they've been looking, they're still my favorite to make the Super Bowl out of the NFC. But it just depends on if they can play a sound game of football when the time's right in the playoffs. Now, of course, moving on, we got another really good game. At least it turned into a really good game. The Bengals and the Patriots. This at first it looked like it was just going to be a blowout. The Bengals went out to a 22-0 lead at halftime. Looked like they were well on their way to just locking up the AFC North, which they still weren't going to be able to. But regardless, get some separation from the Ravens. But in the second half, the Patriots slowly just started chipping away, and it ended up 22-18. But of course, I don't remember exactly what it was, but they just collapsed. I forget if it was an interception by Mac Jones or what it was, but the Patriots just couldn't finish the job. Obviously,
it was a fumble. It was a fumble. With, I think Stevenson fumbled inside in the red zone, which pretty much lost him.
The Stevenson fumble, which just obviously, you mentioned Stevenson, he did have another slow game, which the past couple weeks he was kind of trending up, at least fantasy wise, and this week I believe he only got like 3 points, so that did hurt a lot of people. But main story here, the Patriots have been losing a lot of close games, kind of what we mentioned about the Vikings. Main story, just that last really ugly loss on that last play against the Raiders. But even though they were expected to lose this game against the Bengals, they were in a prime position to steal it right out from under them. Even though they still are in the playoff hunt, it is looking really rough, and it's going to be hard to catch the Dolphins for that 7th seed.
Yeah, it was a pretty surprising game. I mean, with the Bengals being up 22-0 at halftime, and then absolutely getting shut out in the second half and still winning, really just shows that the Patriots really, I would say, they kind of blew themselves. I would say they shot themselves in the foot with this one. The final drive. I think the pick six that Joe Burrow threw, which is pretty much set the turning point of the game. That pretty much set up the point where the Bengals could possibly come back. That shifted the whole momentum going. And coming down to like the final 2 minutes, we see the Patriots driving. They're already inside the red zone, inside the 20. I think they were in. I don't know if they were inside the 15 or inside the 10. But those were there, and I think it was Stevenson. I think it was Stevenson. I would assume it was Stevenson that he did fumble obviously in the friend zone, and that pretty much costed them the game. I think the Patriots got the ball back, but I mean they couldn't get anything done. So I mean I would say the Bengals kind of got away with this one. I mean it would not look good with how the Bengals were looking, especially with them trying to take the excuse me, sorry, I had a brain fart. The AFC North, sorry. Obviously with that, I mean they could still take it, but obviously the offense and defense needed to step up in the half, and I mean, really, realistically, if we were looking into this, Patriots would have won this game if it wasn't for that fumble, and it would have looked really, really bad on the Bengals for choking that and being absolutely scoreless in the second half. But looking at the Patriots, they're 7-8. They could still make playoffs, but they're gonna have to win out depending how their implications are. And with that being said, it was just really surprising football that week for those two teams. Now, moving on to the our next game, which was a pretty surprising game for us, which is the Lions and the Panthers, and how much America was rooting for the Lions. Sadly, they lost 23-37 with the Panthers, I think, rushing 200 yards in the second half, or I think 190 around there. And I benched D'Onta Foreman for Aaron Jones, and Aaron Jones does bad, but D'Onta Foreman does good. Why? Still won though, but it's pretty annoyed me. I mean, Jared Goff had a pretty good game as well. Don't get me wrong. Jared Goff played really, really well, but they really couldn't close enough. The score was 24-7 in the halftime, so it didn't really look much for the Lions. They could have possibly came back, but sadly, the Panthers D was strong towards the fourth quarter and really stopped the Lions. Even though the Lions did score 10 points, they did help close them out for them not to score anymore, for them to catch up. And it was good too. It was very good. DJ Chark had a pretty great game for Detroit as well, for catching 108 yards, but obviously it wasn't enough. And the Panthers looking here, they are in competition with the Buccaneers right now to take the NFC South. So realistically, whichever team loses again, they can't win the division. So I mean, it's really realistically win, and the division is theirs, and obviously their playoffs there for them.
Yeah, I mean, for the Panthers, I mean, obviously they have that big game against the Bucs this week. We'll get into that in the predictions, but the winner of that game will honestly, realistically, be in the playoffs, and obviously probably facing your Cowboys. But yeah, the Panthers, this win was huge for them to stay in the hunt for that for the NFC South. Just that really, really great performance by D'Onta Foreman, like you said, 165 yards per touchdown. And just the main story here, for the Lions was this loss. It just really takes a big hit onto their playoff hopes. I mean, it's good at least that the Commanders and the Seahawks both did take losses here, but with the Commanders' loss, the Lions could have snuck into the 7th seed at least momentarily, but didn't happen. Missed opportunity here. Still really possibility, especially with the Commanders still having to face some pretty good opponents. They could still lose. I believe they play the Eagles week 18, so it just depends on what the Lions end up doing throughout these last two games. It's just a lot that can happen with, I believe it's like 4 or 5 teams that are still in contention for that 7th seed. So just kind of wait out and see who steps up. Now, of course, another team in contention for that AFC South, we got the Falcons and the Ravens. This one, I mean, we both knew we could have went either way. We did disagree on this. You taking the Falcons, and the Ravens did come out on top. Which with a combine of this win and the Bengals beating the Patriots, does clinch the Ravens into the playoffs. So the Bengals did help them out even by separating themselves in the AFC North. But as for the Falcons, this loss does eliminate them from contention in the AFC South. So of course now it's only a 3-man race. But the main thing here is, of course it was the Falcons, but the Ravens with Tyler Huntley and all their struggles at the quarterback position and defensively recently, they stay in the hunt. It's a pretty big win, and obviously they're still in the hunt for the division, which it's going to be a big deal to see the big difference that will come whether they get a 3 seed or a 5 seed, I believe. So it's these last couple games are going to be big, and I believe they also play the Bengals week 18. So that's going to be it'll probably come down to that for the AFC North crown. But I mean, if they have Lamar back for that game, who knows? It just should be just a great end to the season by that point.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I went with the Falcons on this one, thinking they could win just because of the Baltimore Ravens quarterback situation, but was I wrong? Really, I mean, it was another close game that the Ravens won. It was an 8-point game, so I mean, the Falcons did stay in the game, but really couldn't get anything. I mean, Younghoe Koo pretty much set them up, scoring field goals in the second, third, and fourth quarter with being shut out in the first. So, I mean, that really just showed. I mean, Desmond Ridder, I mean, 22 for 33, 218 yards. Pretty average for his standards. It's pretty okay since he's a rookie, but pretty average stats. Really couldn't get it. And obviously, our USC receiver, Drake London, he obviously had a pretty okay game, 7 catches for 96 yards, but obviously it really didn't help much. And then looking at the Ravens, Gus Edwards did have a good game on the ground, just 1 yard shy of 100. So Ravens they're still in the race for the NFC North. So like you said, not NFC North, AFC North, excuse me. So it just really depends on that Bengals and Ravens game. Winner of that game pretty much take the division just for this fair, and then obviously it helps for the playoffs implications. But if Lamar can come back before playoffs, it would look pretty good for the Ravens if we look into it. Now moving on to our next game, which is about to almost wrap up our Christmas Eve game matchups, which was the Texans and Titans, which is a pretty surprising game that the Texans came up on top by 5 points. This was just a very sloppy game by the Titans. It was a close game. This whole game it was neck to neck, with the Texans being up 10-7 at halftime, being shut out in the third, and the Titans coming back in the third. But obviously the Titans cannot keep it up in the fourth quarter, and with the Texans scoring 9 points in the fourth, that's pretty much sealed the game for them. I mean, this is another game that shows with Derrick Henry going off 23 carries, 176 yards, and a touchdown. The Titans once again lose. I think Malik Willis was starting this game, if I'm correct. Malik Willis was starting, and he did get his first touchdown that game, first rushing touchdown. But, I mean, obviously, Malik Willis really couldn't finish it out. I mean, he pretty much put them in the third quarter, get him decently helping them up by 4 points. But that defense of the Titans really struggled in the fourth, coming out, letting the Texans score 9 on them with the offense again. Derrick Henry, obviously, that's pretty much their offense. Derrick Henry, obviously now showing regardless if Derrick Henry goes off or doesn't, Titans could find a way to lose this game. And this game did prove it. And then coming up with a tough matchup against the Dallas Cowboys on Thursday at home at the AT&T Stadium. For them away, that's what I meant. This looks like they're going to be without Ryan Tannehill and possibly without Derrick Henry. So their season could possibly be over if they lose that game, and the division could be to the Jaguars. So it just all depends on how everything is played out. But obviously, it was a great win by the Texans. They're still going to get the first regardless, no matter what. For the Titans, this is a pretty embarrassing win for them. And from them being 7-3 now down to 7-8, it just shows a lot. That's what's happening with the coaching and the whole team in general.
Yeah, I mean, the kind of the main thing you say. We're always used to seeing, as long as Derrick Henry can go off, the Titans should be safe. But kind of now, even just with their quarterback situation, it makes it a lot harder, and just even their defense. I don't know, just the Titans really recently falling off. It's unfortunate. They kind of just seemed like a shoe-in to win this division, but just as I guess you could really attribute it to the injury to Ryan Tannehill, because me. I kind of I'm usually high on the rookie quarterbacks. Like to see how they can do. Expect them to kind of struggle, but really have good expectations for them. But as for Malik Willis, it's kind of really not looking like he'll be the answer. Moving forward, it's looking really hard. I mean, he could develop. You never know. I could end up having to eat my words and be wrong about this, but he just really looks uncomfortable as a passer. He can run, sure, but he looks really underdeveloped. I mean, even worse than what people used to say about Lamar or Justin Fields. Kind of makes me think about how how Bryce Perkins looked when the Rams were forced to throw him in. Just always wants to run. Can't really do anything on the passing side. But yeah, it's just really really rough struggles for the Titans, and I mean, at least this win won't really hurt the Texans as for draft position, as they really are separated from the pack as the worst team. So just a nice moral victory for them, and I guess just move forward and see what they'll do. See if they'll go quarterback or what they decide to do in the draft in the spring. Now moving on, we got another really. I guess it was a pretty good game. The result was expected in this Commanders-Niners game, but it was close to start. Surprisingly, 7-7 at halftime. Looked like the Commanders probably would have had a shot. See, not only keeping their playoff position, but maybe even leapfrogging the Giants for the 6th seed. But unfortunately for them, Brock Purdy and the Niners did kind of wake up and came back to their old selves in the second half. George Kittle getting 2 touchdowns on 120 yards. He's really getting back into his form. And, with the playoffs just around the corner, looking scary for any defenses when you see all the weapons that the Niners have. Obviously, once Debo comes back, just him, McCaffrey, Kittle, it's possibilities seem endless. And just making here, the Niners could be open for another deep playoff run, and could possibly hurt my prediction of the Vikings being the best out of the NFC, but we'll see how it comes to that.
Yeah, and I see the story of this game and the league in general right now, that Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, who is now Mr. Relevant, really coming back for these 49ers. After Trey Lance goes out early in the season, Jimmy G stepping in and it's looking great for the Niners, and then he gets out this season-ending injury as well. The Niners having to move forward with their last pick of the draft, Brock Purdy, and he's been having himself a year, right? Well, not really a year, but he's been having himself a mid towards end season a year right now for him, because no one really expected, not even Niner fans expect him to be this good, and he's really doing them well. Especially with that really scary defense that the Niners have. It just really all comes together. Brock Purdy doing well at quarterback for the team, and it's looking good. That defense pretty much helping them win games as well. And then George Kittle, with them, and then with Christian McCaffrey in the backfield as well. Just everything's going good for the Niners. So this is probably one of the teams to beat in the NFC, other than, I would say, the Vikings or the Eagles. The Niners are going to be the team. Whoever plays the Niners, they're going to have to really be on their game to make sure that defense does not get anything on them. And as for the Commanders, playoff implications are still in for it. I feel like it is like last season. They're on a nice streak, and then they start to fall towards the end of the season and barely missing the playoffs. So, I mean, as for me, being a Cowboys fan and then obviously the rival, I would obviously like to not see that. But, anything can happen towards the end of the season, since the Cowboys and the Commanders do play each other in the last game. So, really, I would say that game would be nice if we do beat the Commanders, but that's for another episode. But other than that, it was really great, well-played game by the 49ers. Now, moving on to my game, the Eagles and the Cowboys game. I would not say this was game of the year, but obviously this is one of the best games of the season so far. So this game looked pretty good. I mean, first drive, Dak Prescott already throws a pick six. This is pretty annoying interception by him. I think he just underestimated him a little bit too much, because he could have thrown a little higher with Dalton Schultz wide open in the out route. But obviously, other than that pick six, Dak Prescott had an amazing game. All for it. This is just a very high scoring game. It was scoring back and forth, and towards the fourth quarter is really when everything came together. We held Miles Sanders under 80 yards, so I mean that's something. But CeeDee Lamb had another great game, 10 catches, 120 yards, and 2 touchdowns, which is the Cowboys' most receiving yards in a season by a Cowboys receiver, passing Dez Bryant. So it's looking really good for CeeDee Lamb right now. As for the Eagles, Gardner Minshew did really well. He props to Gardner Minshew for coming in. He threw 355 yards for 2 touchdowns. Really great game by Gardner Minshew. Got to give my props to him. But he did have a couple turnovers that did cost him some points, which did help us a bit. That defense of my Cowboys, they did step up. They did step up towards the end of the second half, and I'm really glad they did. but still got a lot to fix. That pass rush still needs to happen, be fixed, and then the O line just decided not to block that whole game most of the time. Really, I think 17 times Dak Prescott was pressured. And then T.Y. Hilton, man, what a great entrance for the first Cowboys game. You know, that 50-yard catch that he got on 3rd and 30, which I don't even know how he managed to get to 3rd and 30. That 56-yard bomb to him really really the play of the game for us. That really set us up the victory for this game. You know, fourth quarter coming back, the 2 turnovers that we forced really did help us. And then DaRon Bland, another interception by him. Really great. That rookie's really showing us a lot. And then Jaron Kearse obviously coming in clutch with him on defense. Really great pickup that we really glad we re-signed him. But it was just it was just a great game by Dak Prescott coming back in the fourth quarter to really show that we are the real deal beating these Eagles team. And obviously we won realistically last week against the Jaguars. The division pretty much could have been locked up for us. We would be 12-3, as the Eagles would be 13-2, as we would only be 1 game behind. And we realistically would take the division if we win out and Eagles lose out. But it's going to take a lot. It really is going to take a lot of hope for that. But regardless of this whole game, it was a very great. It was a very lackluster in the beginning, but really great finish for my Cowboys. And I'm very, very excited, really happy for that. And I just really hope we obviously go far in the playoffs. No matter who we play, we cannot look down on them. And I just really hope we make a huge playoff run with this team.
Yeah, I mean, this win does tell a lot for your Cowboys. And I'm not going to go too into because you obviously took the bulk of that. But yeah, I guess the main thing here is, the defense did kind of, sure, they stepped up when it mattered, but giving up 34 and 40 points isn't the best look when you're, touted as, high-powered defenses. In the end, a win's a win, and it was a great win at that for your Cowboys. Of course, just a great game. Obviously, Dak Prescott did go through his struggles to start, but in the end, they pieced it together and they were able to get over a really good game for Gardner Minshew, as you mentioned. And I guess for me, I did take the Eagles on this one. If it wasn't for those 4 turnovers especially those 2 turnovers, that the interception and the fumble could be a completely different story. But as you said, the Cowboys defense stepped up, and that's mainly the reason that you guys ended up pulling this victory. Now, of course, to close out the Saturday slate, we got our Saturday night special holiday Raiders-Steelers game, which obviously this was the 50th anniversary of the Immaculate Reception, all the festivities retiring Franco Harris's number 32. And the Steelers did get a win for him. They got a win for Franco Harris. A little shitty 13-10 win, but a win's a win. It does keep the Steelers in contention for Mike Tomlin to keep his stat of never having a losing season. It's probably still will get one more loss, but we'll see. Of course, I took the Raiders in this game. You took the Steelers. It would have been fine if they kept the first half stats, if they kept it going. But the Raiders just completely getting shut out in the second half really was the key here, and just another really poor game for Derek Carr. Just not really living up to the standard that you usually would have expected for him. And of course, Davante Adams, I believe he only pulled out like 3 points for fantasy, so a real slow game for him. And I guess not the best for Kenny Pickett, but hey, almost 250 yards and a touchdown was enough to rally the Steelers past the Raiders, and of course doing this for Franco Harris.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, really after the Franco Harris death, I kind of really just feel like LeBron. I just knew the Steelers were gonna win this game for Franco Harris, and they did. I just knew not knew, but I kind of had a feeling that the Steelers were gonna win out and play out for Franco Harris, and that's what they did here. I mean, this was pretty much Raiders' game the whole time. They're up 10-3. It was their game. Their advantage the whole time. But obviously, for them being shut out by that Steelers defense, that's pretty overlooked. in the second half. They really shut out the Raiders, and the Steelers scoring 10 in the fourth. Kenny Pickett and George Pickens in that final drive, that game when he touchdown, that really sealed the win. Now, if we really want to look into it, with Derek Carr, if he didn't overthrow Hunter Renfrow, it would have been a tie game going to overtime, or let alone they probably would have won the touchdown. But obviously, Derek Carr throwing his signature overthrown ball to wide open receiver really did cost them that game, and that interception really blew it. But let alone, this is pretty much, I don't want to say blame one person, but obviously Derek Carr, those 3 interceptions, it's just unacceptable. They get started going quickly when they on the first drive score a touchdown. Hunter Renfrow and Derek Carr, they get that connection going in the first drive in the first quarter. We thought it was going to be a good game, or let alone another good Raider game. But really much after that, they got 3 points in the second half, up 10-3, and they didn't do anything after that. So I feel this is pretty much the eye opener that Derek Carr has got to leave Las Vegas. But obviously, Derek Carr is not only the problem here. It's Mike McDaniels for being such a horrible head coach, and obviously everything there. But for all these years, I think Derek Carr, is almost likely his time's up with the Raiders, and also the Steelers. They could still make playoffs. They just got to win out, and hopefully Kenny Pickett, he's finding his groove now, so hopefully he gets it there. And then George Pickens, with how great he is, he just needs 4 targets, and for him to get at least some confidence back, and they could probably get something going. Now, without that game, that's closing out our Saturday slate. Now moving on to our Christmas Day games, starting off with the Packers and the Dolphins. Now, this game was another surprising game, pretty depressing game. Tua had a horrible game towards the not towards the second half after that, but actually it was the second half, but also before the second half, threw 3 interceptions. It was really bad. But if we are going to look into it, pre-concussion into this game, Tua was perfect, and then after his concussion, that's where it really went downhill. So I would want to say that concussion did play a big part of him really throwing those interceptions, playing badly. So, and he is on concussion protocol. So, hopefully it rests up. The NFL's really got to fix this concussion stuff. Really got to look into this stuff. And obviously this was another Dolphins collapse. Dolphins started 3-0, lose 3 in a row. Tua comes back. They're 8-3, and now they're 8-7. This is pretty sad for the Dolphins. Tua was finally proving everyone wrong. At one point, he was 11 touchdowns for 0 interceptions and a near perfect passer rating. He was proving everybody wrong. Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, they're pretty much the stars of these games with these Dolphins. Jalen Waddle had a monster game, 5 catches, 143 yards and a touchdown, but that wasn't enough. Everyone's saying now that Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle obviously carrying Tua, but obviously it's really, I would want to say the concussions really played the big part of what happened, because after this concussion, that's really what went downhill. And then obviously with the Packers winning this game, 6-point game, they're still in the playoff contention. So obviously they win, they're in, depending how all the other playoff implications are. So obviously, great win by the Packers. They're still in. Hopefully the Dolphins can turn it around, because it would be very disappointing starting like 8-3, 8-5, and then now really missing playoffs towards the end of the season.
Yeah, it's a tale of the 2 teams going in different directions. Right now the Packers slowly sneaking their way back up. That it looked like the season was over, and everyone was calling Rodgers finished and everything. Still, didn't look the best in this game overall, but right now with that big win against my Rams last week, and now a big win here against the Dolphins, they're suddenly right back in the playoff conversation. And at this point, with how the other teams like the Commanders, Seahawks, and Lions are slowly falling back down, it's looking increasingly possible for the Packers to sneak in, and we'll just see what ends up happening. But as for the Dolphins, it's basically exactly what you said. It's considering how they started and how Tua was looked at as an MVP candidate at first. It really is unfortunate if they do end up missing the playoffs, or just, they've fallen off. They could have won the AFC East at one point, and then all of a sudden they're just barely clinging on to the 7th seed by a thread. I guess the main thing, sure, that concussion. There was one play, I don't remember if it was in the second or third quarter, that you could see his head went crashing down. So you could attribute it to that point, and when you could see his stats separating from before and after that hit. But before what we're assuming what was a concussion, he was 9 for 12, 229 yards, and touchdown and no interceptions. And then from that point, 7 for 13, only 81 yards, no touchdowns, and those 3 interceptions. So it is obviously looking like that concussion was what knocked him out of the game, at least, to his competence in the game. And I mean, sure, it's more of the Dolphins probably didn't want to ride with a backup, and just these concussion doctors not really doing their job, and at least for the Dolphins and for the NFL. So we'll obviously prayers for Tua. Hopefully, I mean, if he has to sit out this game, oh well. I mean, it's just his health first, but it's hopefully just wait and see what's in store for the Dolphins. See if they can hold on to that 7th seed. Now, of course, we move on to my game this Christmas Day. Wonderful Christmas present for me to get to watch. Well, I didn't watch the Nickelodeon broadcast, but of course, a nice 51-14 victory for my Rams. Sure was the Broncos. I'm not gonna go out and say we're back for next season, but I mean there's just so much good to look at in this game. First and foremost, Baker Mayfield, 230 yards and 2 touchdowns. What a game for him. He obviously he did kind of fall back down to earth in that loss to the Packers. It was in Lambeau. It was in sub-zero weather. I'm not gonna bash on him too much for that. Now, of course, he's back in normal conditions. Plays a hell of a game. Just absolutely torches the Broncos defense, throwing everywhere. Just really hitting the receivers. You could see the chemistry he's built over the past 2 weeks of actually being here, actually getting to know these guys. Of course, what can I say about Cam Akers, man? From before, when we had basically thrown him to the curb, gotten rid of him, when his struggles this season have never been his fault. It's for the most part really been on the O-line. Sure, there's a couple plays you can see that he doesn't look at his best. Sometimes just running straight at D linemen when there's holes. Yeah, but I mean, for what the O-line has been this year, I'm not gonna say anything bad about him. He's been working what he can, and now today, 118 yards and 3 touchdowns on 23 carries. Just randomly turning into a prime Todd Gurley on against the Broncos defense, and hopefully this is a sign for better things to come. If the Rams can rebuild this O-line, I would not be surprised if he turns into a top 10, top 5 running back in next season, depending on if we get an O-line. But apart from that, the defense, just a wonderful game. I believe it was 4 interceptions. Jalen Ramsey finally getting another interception. I believe it's his first one since that week 2 game against the Falcons. Great interception for him. Bobby Wagner picking up his former teammate in Russell Wilson. A real nice pick, which at that point it set us up to go 17-0 in the first quarter. And then from there, it was Jacoby Durant, one of the best rookies, I believe. I mean, he should be getting defensive rookie of the week and defensive player of the week easily, in my opinion, with 2 interceptions, one of them being a pick 6. Just really balling out. If he would have shown this a little more, he could have probably been a defensive rookie of the year. But still, I mean, I see a bright future if at some point, I mean, in the future, Ramsey does want to leave and go back to a contender, not be a part of this rebuild. I would feel really good about Durant being kind of to take his spot and see what we can do with him. But overall, I'm not going to stretch this out too much more than I already have but hey, I mean, I will enjoy this win. It's probably the last one I'm going to get to enjoy this season. We'll see if we can dethrone the Seahawks later. But still, it's just a great game for the Rams, just to build up the fan base. And yeah, man, I guess I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, you pretty much cleared that up pretty well, so I'm not going to go too deep into that, but yes, it was a very good win by the Rams. Obviously, I was very happy to see that Baker had a great game, 230 yards, 2 touchdowns, so love seeing that Baker's finally doing well, me being a big Baker fan. Then as for the Broncos, arguing on the sidelines, getting roasted by Patrick Starr, everything's just in shambles for the Broncos, but other than that, The Broncos lost to MVP Baker Mayfield, so they're not going to recover from that. But really, really great win by the Rams. Great win for Baker. Great game for Cam Akers as well. Going for 118 and 3 touchdowns. Very great. And then obviously your rookie had a phenomenal game as well. So obviously, hopefully something happens next season with the Rams with the bounce back. But I wouldn't say this game would be a big decision maker whether your Rams are going to bounce back or not. But it's a great win overall. Now closing out with our Sunday slate, which is only 3 games. We have the Buccaneers and the Cardinals, and this was a very good game. Now, obviously, before we go into it, J.J. Watt of the Cardinals just announced he will be retiring in the offseason. So this is really Hall of Fame career legend right there. Obviously, great with the Texans. We'll assume he's going to retire as a Cardinal. So obviously, he will go down as one of the great DNs of all time. So J.J. Watt was just really, really sad to hear about that he's retiring. But now moving on to the game, obviously. This game was another comeback win. Surprise, surprise. Tom Brady comes back once again against pretty lackluster Cardinals team that the Cardinals look like they're about to win this game. But the Buccaneers just come back and then overtime win by a field goal. Tom Brady, I mean, you see he's kind of slowing down a bit, but still manages to come back. 281 yards and a touchdown. So, I mean, pretty okay. But it just for them coming back again, pretty surprises me. NFL scriptwriters going crazy about this Tom Brady another comeback win, but let's not get into that right now. But obviously the Cardinals, they're already out of playoff contention, so this game really would have meant nothing to them unless it was for drafting positions. But obviously for the Buccaneers, it meant a lot to them since they are in the race for the NFC South title and only being one game above the Carolina Panthers. So realistically, they went out there in whichever team loses once, then the division goes to the team who wins out. But not really much to say about this game, but it was just another hard-fought win by Tom Brady to finish off the game. And then obviously for the Cardinals, really horrible season for them, and they got a lot to fix this offseason.
That's my main takeaway here. The Cardinals. I mean, it was an ugly game from the start. I mean, nothing but field goals throughout the first 3 quarters, just 6-6. And I mean, slowly the offense start picking it up. A touchdown for the Cardinals, touchdown for the Bucs, and in the end, we got a 16-16 game going in overtime. Not the best football to watch, but I mean, it was a close game. Can't say much until, like you said, game-winning field goal. I mean, even the Cardinals did have a chance to probably should have been able to win it. They did have the ball first in overtime, but Trace McSorley going against the great Tom Brady probably would have expected this anyway. So, I mean, but yeah, of course, you all already mentioning the J.J. Watt news. Just pay my own respects. Just a great play overall. First ballot Hall of Famer, no doubt. Just obviously one of my favorite players growing up in this league, and just obviously wish the best for him in his retirement. And obviously going out with a bang in his final home game. I believe he had 2 sacks and just obviously always really giving a lot of pressure on Tom Brady. So I mean, it's nice to see. I mean, he still has 2 games left in his career, but I mean, in his last home game, it's nice to see him go out with a good one. But yeah, it's just the main story is up to see what ends up happening in the NFC South, and hopefully someone dethrones the Bucs, at least for my liking. I would assume you feel the same way. Depends. This game that we'll get into in the preview against the Panthers really could be telling, but obviously we'll leave that for the preview. And of course, to close out the recap, we got Monday Night Football. Great game for the Chargers taking on the Colts. This win does clinch a playoff spot for the Chargers for the first time since 2018, back when they had Phillip Rivers and Anthony Lynn. I've been on Justin Herbert's back for the longest time since he was drafted. I've been always saying nothing but great things about him. It finally pays off here, with all his haters always saying he hasn't made the playoff. Can't really say much there. He has finally taken the Chargers to the playoffs here. So who is he? Emmanuel Ocho can't say nothing no more, but he is in shambles at this moment. But just sure. I mean, not the greatest game for Herbert standards, especially going against a Colts team. But when you're playing the Colts, it doesn't take much. I mean, sure, his 235 yards were enough to get the Chargers on top, and the defense can't say much about them. They've been stepping up recently for the Chargers, holding the Colts to 3 points, and obviously Herbert did lead the Chargers to get 20 points. So right now they're 9-6. They're holding the 6th seed at the moment. Just depends to see if they can leapfrog the Ravens, I believe, for the 5th seed. See who ends up getting to play the South champion, and obviously that would be you would expect an easy ticket to the divisional round.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna admit I was one of those people that had doubts about Herbert. You even said it in the podcast, so I will admit that. And obviously, like I said before, I would love to see if Justin Herbert proves me wrong, and he did that. But obviously, it was a pretty average game for him. He did throw that one interception in the first quarter, and after that, it kind of bounced back a bit. So I really got Justin Herbert prove me wrong finally in the playoffs. Hopefully, he just can. Hopefully, he can just prove himself in the playoffs that he's worth it. Not just hopefully just making it there in the wild card and then just out. But obviously, against the Colts. But you don't know, Colts can be a little trap team here and there, but with them being officially out, it really doesn't matter. But obviously, nothing much to say. It was just a really great win with Justin Herbert and this team. Austin Eckler recording 2 touchdowns, obviously, and Keenan Allen obviously going for 104 yards. So Justin Herbert, really great for him. Really happy for him in the playoffs. Hopefully, he can just recuperate this for the remainder of the season, kind of do well for the finish out strong, go move into the playoffs. Now that wraps up our what was it? Week 16?
Week 16.
I already have week 16. There you go. All right, I had a little brain spasm right there. So that obviously finishes our week 16 recap. Now, obviously, before we go to our week 17 predictions, David, obviously going over our predictions for last week.
Of course. Once again, we unfortunately hit even. We had four disagreements. We split them 2-2. So but our predictions were pretty solid this week. I mean, I believe this was one of our best records. We did hit 12-4. Of course, if one of us would have gotten those one of those disagreements going the same way, one of us could have been 13-3. We could have actually had some separation between us. But unfortunately, we won't. See what we can do in the next 2 weeks. But we are now even at 144-96. So obviously, our record is slowly going up there. Where we seem to. I mean, the past 2 weeks, 11-5, 12-4, been doing a little better at this. So see what we can do. Hopefully, actually get some separation between us in these last, I believe, 32 games of the season. So that being said, Christian, let's get it going with the Week 17 preview. Obviously, you got some. You'll be interested in talking about this Thursday night game.
Yeah, so obviously starting the week off, Thursday night game. Now it is the Cowboys at Titans, so it will be at the Nissan Stadium, not AT&T. So finally corrected there. So we will be visiting the Titans in this game. Obviously introducing our new white helmets, so beautiful with our color rush. So obviously debuted a new uniform and could get the win on here. So going with my Cowboys, here really expect another great game by Dak Prescott. Really hope the defense bounces back against this really struggling Tennessee Titans team. It's just that pass rush really needs to step up. And with recent reports, Ryan Tannehill and Derrick Henry could possibly miss this game. So, the Titans are already in shambles enough. It is the most questionable for Derrick Henry. It is a pretty affirmative response if that's Ryan Tannehill does not start. But Derrick Henry is questionable. So, without those two, I would expect Cowboys to win this game.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with you there. Even if they had both of those guys, I would have to say Cowboys take this. Just seeing how, as the defense still isn't at the level I would like to see them. But you're playing the Titans. You're playing a pretty subpar team. I'd easily have to say that Dak and just the entire receiving core, basically just everyone has a field day with the Titans, especially seeing that they won't have Derrick Henry or Ryan Tannehill. Of course, moving on. Getting it started on New Year's Day 2023, first Sunday games of the new year. Got the Cardinals at the Falcons pregame here, but still there no real playoff implications here. They're both looking forward to next season. I would expect the Falcons to to take this. You just see like I said, two struggling teams, but with actually, yeah, they both have backup quarterbacks with Desmond Ridder for the Falcons and depending if McCoy or McSorley goes for the Cardinals. But yeah, I would expect the Falcons to end up on top here. Probably a good rushing game for Tyler Algier, who I did expect to not have his best game, and he didn't last week. But I'll expect him to bounce back this week.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you here on Atlanta. Got this one again. I mean, there's just two teams already eliminated for playoffs. It's just really this game should be matched for the drafting positions, but I will go for Atlanta on this one. You know, Arizona is very lackluster, and Atlanta bearing another inconsistent team that early in the season. But you know, with Desmond Ridder had an okay game last week, I feel like he can capitalize off that loss and turn this week into a win. You know, hopefully play a little better. So I will go with Atlanta. Now, coming on our next game, which I would anticipate to be a great game, the Chicago Bears at the Detroit Lions. Now, obviously, I will ride with the Lions on this one once again. You know, especially since their playoff hopes are still in the remix. You know, obviously not badly, but losing poorly to the Carolina Panthers really mixed up their playoff hopes for them. So obviously, winning this game at home could really keep their playoff hopes alive, and I really do expect that. I really do hope that. I really hope Jared Goff, Jameson Williams, DeAndre Swift, have good games. So is Jamal Williams. Hopefully they have good games there to really capitalize on a playoff run. So we'll go with Detroit.
I'm gonna have to agree with you here. This that'd be the ideal result for both teams, and just obviously the Lions need a win. A lot here would basically eliminate them from the playoffs, not mathematically yet, but just realistically. And for the Bears, I mean, they really want to stay up there. I believe they're in line for the second pick right now. So, I expect our fan base would hope that they just lose out at this point, not mess up their draft position, and yeah, just I would expect a pretty smooth Lions win here. Now moving on, another early game in the Broncos at the Chiefs. Another game I believe we could agree on pretty easily. All the turmoil in the Broncos. Of course, we didn't mention in the preview. They did finally get rid of Nathaniel Hackett. He did get fired after his 4-11 start. Could have expected this since a good while ago, but the time is now, and they're back on the head coach search. But all that being said, you expect the Chiefs to come out on top pretty easily. With the Broncos just being in shambles and the Chiefs just being miles above everyone else in that division, I expect Mahomes to just have an absolute field day with his Broncos defense.
Yeah, I'm going to go again. Go Kansas City on this one. Now, hopefully, the Chiefs reflected off a couple weeks game where it was a very close game with the Broncos, which is pretty criminal, allowing them to score 20-plus points. But hopefully, it is a division matchup. These are more important. Well, obviously, not really as important anymore, but still a divisional game. It's always great to win against your divisional rival. And, hopefully they reflected all of that one and they win with a very bigger margin here. So, obviously, hopefully a field day for the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, moving on to our next game, which is another tough divisional matchup between the AFC East, which is the Miami Dolphins and the New England Patriots. Now, obviously, both teams have playoff implications still alive. Collapsing seasons coming out, especially for the Dolphins. But with this one, I will be going for the actually, I forgot since Tua is on concussion, I will be going for the New England Patriots this time. Obviously, I do feel like the Tua will sit out this game with being on concussion protocol, so not time for rushing him. So because of that, I will be going with the New England Patriots on this one.
Despite Tua's injury, regardless if he plays or not, I'm going to go with the Dolphins here. I believe the defense can step up enough. Mac Jones has been struggling as of late. Just the Patriots' offense overall. I mean, even the defense haven't been able to contain. So I forget who their second stringer is. Is it Teddy?
Terry Bridgewater.
They still got Teddy. Yeah, I trust that if Tua isn't back, because I mean, who knows with the how they manage concussions, if they're going to keep Tua out. But if they do, and Teddy Bridgewater has to come in, I really do believe that he'll will them to a win here, keep them in that 7th seed, and I think at this point that would eliminate the Patriots. So I'm going to go with the Dolphins here. Now moving on, I think we can agree on this one a little easier. Colts Giants. Gonna have to say the Giants hold on to the 6th seed here, get a nice victory. believe see who the Colts end up starting here. I wouldn't expect them to go with Nick Foles, but just overall, yeah, they're let them tank their way back down. Just forget this season, move on to next year, and I see the Giants holding on to their playoff spot for now.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Giants as well. I mean, they're going against the Colts. The Colts are pretty much done. We already saw how Nick Foles played, so I mean, it's pretty obvious to go with the Giants here. Then we're going to try our next game, which is a pretty obvious call here. The New Orleans Saints and the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, as much as I need Philly to lose out, I don't think it's going to happen here against the Saints. So I will be going with Philly on this one. I do feel like Gardner Minshew will possibly win out for the Eagles. Just in further return of Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, easy call here. I'm going to have to agree with you. Who knows if you get your famous little Andy Dalton masterclass? Wouldn't expect it, but yeah, I do expect the Eagles to win here, probably win out, which I think they'd be playing the Giants week 18. But yeah, I expect the Eagles to win out. This win, I believe, would clinch the division. So unfortunately for you, that would be the end of the road in the NFC East race. But obviously, you'll get a nice consolation in facing whoever wins the NFC South. Of course, speaking of the NFC South, up next we got the pivotal game in this division race in the Panthers at the Buccaneers. We've been alluding to this the entire episode. Of course, the winner of this game will most likely win the division, as if the Panthers are able to beat the Buccaneers, they'd be even on record, and the Panthers would hold the tiebreaker as far as the division record. Sure, of course, they could lose next week. The Bucs could win, and that could turn things around. But for me, I would expect the Panthers to win here. As much as I just see the Bucs have been struggling. We saw how they played against the Cardinals last week, and the Panthers riding high on after beating a hot team in the Lions. I do expect Sam Darnold to will this team ever so much closer to a playoff spot here.
Yeah, so obviously, like you said, this is probably going to be the game of the week, and we did mention it earlier in this episode that this was going to be the game to determine it, and I will be going for the Carolina Panthers. I do feel like Sam Darnold will rally his team against Tom Brady and those Buccaneers to a loss. Really high hopes for the Carolina on this one. I'd rather play Carolina than Tampa, depending if they do win either one. For the Cowboys' sake and my sake, I'd rather play Carolina. But obviously, whichever one wins really doesn't matter. We're gonna play one of them regardless. So just hope I'm going for Carolina on this one. Especially with that run game, if they keep that rushing attack going, I do think they could close out a win here in Tampa. Now moving on to the next game. This is could be a two-sided game. It could be a two-sided game here. The Cleveland Browns at the Washington Commanders. Now, the Washington Commanders play hope still alive. With the way Cleveland was looking, I will be going for the Washington Commanders on this one. As much as I need them to lose, for the sake of playoff predictions, I will be going for the Commanders. They do have the upper edge on Cleveland here, especially with the way Deshaun Watson has been playing.
Yeah, easy call for me at this one. The way I mentioned the Browns in the recap, it just doesn't seem like Deshaun Watson is really getting the hang of anything at this point. So mainly because of that, I'm gonna go with the Commanders here. The Browns are a better team in my eyes, but with the lack of chemistry and the lack of time together with Deshaun Watson, it's probably easier to expect the Commanders to win. And you see Taylor Heineke's recent run. I would expect him to pull this one out. Now moving on, we got another pretty important game for the divisional races in the Jaguars and Texans. If the Jaguars can pull this one out, which we do expect the Titans to lose, a win here for the Jaguars would be key in locking up that AFC South by Week 18. And of course, they're playing the Texans. I would expect the Jaguars to win. So yeah, I will pick them to win. I expect Trevor Lawrence to have just a monster game here. Just really cook the Texans defense. Probably this one being finally the game where the Texans fall back down after 3 really solid games for them.
Yeah, I'm going to agree here. Jacksonville, with this game, I do feel like Jacksonville could have won now to the division. If in the AFC South, obviously, if Tennessee loses to Dallas, the division is going to be the Jacksonville regardless. So, going to go with Jacksonville on this one. Now, next game should be a no-brainer. San Francisco 49ers at the Las Vegas Raiders. I mean, with that defense of the Niners and that monster quarterback Brock Purdy, I will be going for the San Francisco 49ers on this one.
Yeah, gonna have to agree with you here. Just we see the way the Raiders have been looking, just worse and worse, looking like that. Obviously, the honeymoon phase with reuniting Derek Carr and Davante Adams, well past that, and see if Derek Carr's career in Vegas is over. But yeah, just see the Niners making that playoff push and looking to make another playoff run. See them rolling over the Raiders here. Now we got a game that could go both ways in the Jets and the Seahawks. Two teams really looking to hit a playoff spot here. So I'm gonna expect the Jets to beat the Seahawks here. I think they have, I believe they're going back with Mike White here. So I think they'll go back to 500 here, and this basically killing the remaining playoff hopes the Seahawks have.
I'm gonna disagree with this one on here. I will be going for the Seattle Seahawks on this one. Mike White led them to that big win, but after that, Mike White just really struggled when he was back in. So hopefully, I wouldn't say hopefully he does it again, but I do feel like this could be a game where he possibly might not do bad, but maybe come close to just come up short of winning. I do feel Geno Smith will make the comeback with the Seahawks on this game. Now moving on, which is the Minnesota Vikings at the Green Bay Packers. We already see Minnesota clinch the division. Packers looking for a strong playoff push. Really, they need to win now and they're in. So this is the playoff implications. But sadly, I do feel like Minnesota will crush their playoff hopes with this game, and I expect a huge game with Justin Jefferson.
Couldn't have said it better myself. That is exactly what I'm going to agree with here. And of course, our boy Carbajal won't be happy to see this, but I'm expecting myself also a pretty big Vikings win here. Honestly, you never know. The Packers could end up making it close, but just in then won't matter, and the Vikings will go to 13-3. Of course, we got my game up next. With that, it was unfortunately flexed out of Sunday Night Football. It will just be an average afternoon game. Rams taking on the Chargers. Unfortunately, I can't go with my Rams here. I'm going to have to go with the Chargers to take this win. They already clinched playoffs. They're battling for seeding. So I expect the Chargers I expect Herbert to have a pretty good game. Hopefully Baker can keep it close. That defense, which had just a great game last week, have a decent enough. Maybe just all the players that were clicking last week. It could. I would love to get this prediction wrong, just for the biased Rams fan side of me. But for my prediction, I'm gonna have to expect the Chargers to win here.
Yeah. So the battle of SoFi, LA Rams, LA Chargers. So obviously, as much as I want Baker to succeed, Chargers are already in the playoffs. So now it's just all about seeding implications. So because of that, I do feel the Chargers are going to play strong and heavy and really aggressive this game and really blow the Rams out of the water. So I will be going with the Chargers. Now, next game. Now, this is really going to be decided if Lamar was going to return to the Baltimore Ravens. And if that was the case, I would have went with the Ravens. But I do feel that since Lamar now is not starting and how the Kenny Pickett and George Pickens were kind of getting active against the Raiders, I do feel Pittsburgh will get the victory here at Baltimore. And it will kind of slow down the Baltimore's title race against the Bengals here. Now, if it is a game time decision where where Lamar does start with the Ravens, then that's a different story. But I will stick with the Steelers.
Yeah, I mean, same reason for me. It's just the quarterback situation in Baltimore. You can't. They've really been struggling. I'm sure they pulled out a win against Atlanta last week, but that's Atlanta. So yeah, I'd expect the Steelers, especially with how they've been looking. Najee Harris, Kenny Pickett, and if they involve George Pickens a little more into the receiving game, it would not surprise me to see the Steelers pull out a not a surprising victory, but a decent victory, morally at least. Of course, wrapping all that up, we got Monday Night Football. The Bills at the Bengals. This being a wonderful game with could be a future playoff matchup. And I'm gonna go with the slight upset here. I'm gonna go with the Bengals to get the win at home. Even just We've been saying it. The Bills have been, hitting their stride all the right times, but so have the Bengals, and they've really been looking solid. I'll expect them to make it a little harder for the Bills to clinch home field advantage throughout the playoffs.
Well, to disagree once again, I do got the Buffalo Bills winning this one. I have a really thing going for Josh Allen right now, that he could possibly get the Buffalo Bills to get to the home playoff advantage. So I do think the Buffalo Bills would carry out the win to the Bengals. Now, it will be a very close game. I want to say not too high scoring game, but it will be a decently scored game. So we'll be going with the Buffalo Bills on this one. Now, obviously, that wraps up our Week 17 predictions. It's closing us of the season. Playoffs around the corner. Playoff implications in play. So our season implications. Just closing out the season. Stick with the podcast, and just we're really glad we keep doing this. Obviously, like we said before, we'd like to thank the fans that we have. The majority of the fans that we have, small fans we have, and the people that just keep sticking with us. Really makes us happy that we're sticking around with this, and just nothing else much to say. That we just say thank you guys, and obviously we gotta enjoy the last moments of football, last moments of games before we get into the playoffs, because it will be going by really fast. Now, David, any last thoughts?
Nothing much. Like you said, feels like yesterday when we barely started this out in September, and just like that, 16 weeks of football have come and gone. And just like that, just 2 more weeks to go until the playoffs, and sooner or later, before we know it, going to be February, and we'll be talking about the Super Bowl. So yeah, like you said, don't want to get too repetitive, but of course I always want to express our gratitude to anyone that watches us week in and week out, anyone that takes the time out of the day, come to listen to some football takes, and yeah, I always appreciate that. Hope to keep growing little by little. We've been seeing some decent enough growth, but yeah, just get this out, get to see what happens these last 2 weeks of football, and we'll see you guys Sunday morning.